Hello and welcome to Testimony Time with me, Del Barefoot, on Revelation TV. It's great to have you, the viewers, with us yet again. We have a tattoo artist with us today. He's a modern-day Barnabas. He's a son of encouragement. He's an evangelist. And God has really completely turned his life around. And Graham, it's great to have you with us today. He's known affectionately as Swanny. Good to have you with us. Now, Swanny, you had an idyllic childhood. That's how you describe it. Growing up in Loughborough, and your parents loved you very much, but you got to the age of 10, and things started to spiral downward, seemingly out of control to you. You felt very insecure and very unloved. What was the cause of that? Well,
what it was, my older brother was starting to get into trouble with the police a lot, and they was constantly coming around the house and talking to my parents, and I was getting pushed into the back room for protection. But at that time, insecurity, thinking they didn't want me in the family. I become very timid, very insecure, and unfortunately for me, I felt very unloved. It was kind of like I thought they was thinking more about my older brother than me. I'd go to school, and people pick up on this very easily. When somebody sees a weaker person, they become stronger. And kids, being kids, notice this. And I started getting bullied at school, and I started becoming a very sad person.
Yes, and eventually you move on to senior school. And this was a desperately unhappy period, Swanny, in your life, wasn't it? And what did you experience there? Because I was reading about this earlier, and it sounded absolutely horrendous. Can you share it with our viewers?
Yeah, it was a nightmare, a complete nightmare. I started getting bullied, like I say, and it was more than just the odd name calling. I was being viciously punched and kicked, and they was taking me down these woods and whipping me kind of thing, and taking me pocket money off me. Well, because of this, I become very, very more weak than anything, and I was very scared, and I couldn't sleep at night. I wasn't eating properly. Every now and again, my mum and dad would say, what's going on, are you all right? And, you kid everyone along, saying I was fine. And then, unfortunately, a paedophile noticed this, noticed the weakness in me, called me over, invited me into his house. I was 10 years old at this time, and sexually abused me, and this carried on for about 3 years, day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out. I was going there after school, and he was performing sexual acts on me, and I just all I wanted to do was die. I just wanted me mum. I was very, very, very feared. I were very thin, very weak within, and I could never live in the now. I could never live in the present moment and enjoy my life. I was constantly worrying about what was going to happen to me after school, or I was actually in depression of what had happened to me the day before.
This is hell on earth. You were experiencing hell on earth. Were you able, Swanny, to share this with your closest friend, or with your parents, or with anybody at all?
No.
And were you just living in fear? Did he have this grip of fear on you?
Yeah, he had this power over me, this almighty power. He said the right things. He told me that I was ugly, nobody loved me, and I was kind of feeling that anyway. And he was just okay in what I was feeling, reassuring me. And he was telling me it was all my fault. I'd give him the come on. He was just saying the right words, that a man will do when he's on his prey. He was just saying things to me and making me just hate myself, really hate myself. I was so depressed.
I can't imagine it. It's incomprehensible, because you weren't happy at home. You were experiencing this terrible bullying at school. It was the most terrible kind of extreme bullying imaginable. Then you were having this sexual abuse as well. But at 13, once you became a teenager, an event occurred that turned you, as it were, from the victim to the perpetrator. Can you just share what happened there, Swanny?
Yeah, well, classic. Bullied became bully. Somebody punched me in the mouth, and this older kid walked around the corner at the right time for me and the wrong time for the lad who hit me, and stuck up for me. And for that very first time, I seen the weakness in another person. I see me in that other person, and what happened where I got this like man power come inside me, and the lad who had hit me, he seemed so much smaller. Everything just seemed like in slow motion. And from that day on, I thought, no one is ever going to lay a finger on me again. No one. And I got this real burning desire inside me, which we call hatred. And I decided that way I was going to fight the world, and anyone come near me, they were going to get it. I become very, very violent. Literally overnight, school couldn't handle me. I was fighting non-stop. Anyone come near me, I was getting a reputation of being very fearless. But what was happening was I was full of fear. So anyone that come near me, I'd attack. I'd attack, and I'd go all out.
Fear and aggression.
Yes, fear and aggression. Even though I was just a small person, the fear what was inside was so big.
Yeah.
And I become very, very violent. I attracted a lot of violent people. You know, the same ink hangs around with the same ink. Unfortunately, alcoholics hang around with alcoholics, drug users hang around with drug users, violent men hang around with violent men. And I started hanging around with a big gang, a dangerous gang.
Yes.
And nobody could really control me.
Did you become a gang leader or one of the gang leaders?
I wouldn't say I become a gang leader, but I was very, very up for it all. You know what I mean? I was feeding my ego all the time. So I was because I was full of fear. And people says, oh, you ain't scared of no one. I lived up to that reputation because you become what people say you are. You know, if somebody tells you you're a fool so many times, you start living up to that belief. Yes. Even though it might not be a true belief, if someone tells you enough times you're ugly or you're fat or you're not worthy, or, you know, if you've got an husband who's beating you or a wife who is, or somebody's bullying you, sexually abusing you, and that's not only in the playground, that's in the workplaces, it's anywhere in life. If somebody tells you enough times, you will start believing it. It will start going to your subconsciousness, and it will start showing up in your life. And that's how it worked for me. You know, when people says, oh, you ain't scared of no one, I laughed. I liked it, I laughed, and I thought, yeah, that's right, I'll show people I'm not scared of no one.
It gave you an identity.
It did, it did. It gave me something to hold on to.
Now, at the age of 15, things are getting seriously and dangerously out of control in your life, and you start to get into alcohol and drugs big time as well. What was going on in your head? What was motivating you? What were the emotional triggers, as it were?
Well, as I've found out now, it's a fallen world. And when we are hurting inside, what we try and do is try and find happiness outside of ourselves. Now, happiness lies within a human being. Pleasure lies outside, and also so does anger and jealousy and everything. So what I'd done, I started drinking. It started, you know, a bit of cider on the rec or playgrounds, and smoking, probably drinking a little bit of vodka, and it gave me a joy, it gave me an happiness inside of me, a false one, but I didn't know any different, and really because of the anger within me, I was fighting the world. You know, the insecurity in me, the sadness, the insecurity, the anger, all of it. What I was doing, I was feeding it with alcohol. Well, that's like petrol and matches. It don't work. So when I would drink, I would have a stage of happiness, of feeling merry, then all of a sudden, the alcohol would take over, the drink would take over, and then become even more violent. I become, you know, I was getting more dangerous, you know, because the alcohol was just fueling my emotions. So when somebody come near me, I'd take it out on them twice as bad as I would sober.
Yeah, and losing all your inhibitions as well.
Yeah, losing it. But because it gave me an escape, I looked at alcohol as an escape, but really it's a trap.
Yeah.
But you start relying on it. You know, you start looking at it as it's your way of getting away from the world, getting away from reality for a bit.
Escapism.
And just, you know, it's escapism.
Yeah.
When really it's a trap. You know,
and it's a depressant as well.
That's right. Nobody wakes up in the morning and has a fag and then starts smoking 50 a day. Nobody wakes up in the morning and smokes has a can of beer and then starts drinking 2 bottles of vodka the next day. Everything's gradually. Everything grows in life.
It's a process, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
A dangerous process as well. What was your parents' response to all of this, your mum and dad, when they realised what you were getting up to? And also you ended up in prison at that time as well.
I did, yeah. Yeah, what happened were, my parents were devastated, really, but I'd never seen it. My brother was getting in lots and lots of trouble. He'd been put away by this time. He'd gone... they took him into care. The authority had took him into care because he was out of control. He was hanging around with a gang, an older gang than mine, obviously. Totally out of control, bringing a lot of trouble home. So my mum and dad was kind of, what are you doing to us? You can see the heartache your older brother's doing. You're just as bad as him. So I thought, well, if I'm just as bad as him, I'll live up to that reputation and all. So it was like kind of, I kind of blame them. I blame them for moaning. You know, I blame the teachers. I blame the lad in front of me. I blamed my girlfriend. You know, I did a lot of blaming, complaining.
Anybody?
Oh yeah, no, it weren't me. It were everybody else's fault. You know, it weren't my fault that my brother got in trouble with the police. It weren't my fault that I got bullied. It weren't my. You know, I never asked to be sexually abused. I never asked that lad to stare at me the wrong way. You know, I never told my mum and dad to moan at me. It were constant blaming and complaining.
Victim mentality.
Oh,
actually.
yeah, you know how it is.
Oh, boy. So how did you end up in prison fighting?
Right, yeah, I ended up in prison. What happened were I was totally out of control. My mum and dad couldn't control me. The school couldn't control me, so by this time I'd been thrown out of school. Just life just didn't know how to handle me. I didn't even know how to handle myself, truthfully. And I got sent away. I got sent into a young offenders home. But I just fought in there and all because I was fighting myself.
Yes.
This is the problem. It all starts within. It all starts within. And, you know, obviously I found out now, Jesus says, first seek the kingdom of heaven, first go within yourself when you find God. And I went to prison, but I didn't care. I didn't care I was in prison. I weren't bothered if I were dead or alive, and that's dangerous for the young kid today. If he's not respecting his own life, how can he respect anybody else's life out of his? And it's very, you know, it's very dangerous.
So, Swanny, what was your reaction? What was your response to going to prison and the remand centre and so on? Did you feel totally trapped by those circumstances in your life at the time?
I felt not so much trapped. I felt angry. It was all anger. It was hatred, you know. I